Hi, participants. That's what you're called. You're called my participants, which is so exciting and wonderful. I just want to thank you for being willing to go through this training with me, for being patient with me if I might do something wrong or make a misstep. But more than anything, I just want to thank you for being willing to hear what I have to say about trauma, hear what I have learned about what happens in the brain, and potentially give you just a few really helpful tips to combat some of those moments that you see yourself responding to trauma, or you see your children in a state of their brain responding to trauma. So I just want to say thank you again, and I will be attaching the pretest to this video, and I will be attaching the schedule to this video so that you know the order of how we're going to be doing things for the next couple days together. And this is at your own pace. There will be only like a final deadline, like please have it all kind of done by this time, just so that I'm able to present this information in my capstone, which is what they call the final project for my particular master's program. It's called a prospectus or a capstone. So I just wanted to start today by telling you a little bit about why this topic is really important to me. I hope that as I'm explaining why it's important to me, that you might be able to relate, that you might be able to see pieces of your own story in my story, or pieces of the story in the children that are in your life that might be similar to what I'm going through or what you've experienced. So when I was 28, I was carrying my first child. His name was Jackson, and we found out very early on at the sonogram, where you decide if it's a boy or girl, or not decide, but where you discover if it's a boy or girl. We discovered that it was a boy, but that there were some things that were a little amiss. And so we were sent to a very prestigious university down in downtown Charleston, and they told us that in fact there were some very serious things wrong with our son, with Jackson. And so he was safe once when he was being carried by me, but the second that we would deliver, his trachea wasn't forming correctly, the cartilage in his trachea, and he wouldn't be able to breathe. We didn't know how long we would have, if we would have any time at all. We could have seconds, we could have minutes, we could have hours, but chances are we were not gonna keep him. He was gonna pass away. And there was nothing the doctors could do. There was no treatment, there was nothing that we could do. And the day that he was born, as you can imagine, leading up to that, carried an incredible amount of fear, anxiety. I was just full of dread to experience the birth and the loss of a child all in one day. And he was born, and he lived for a miraculous 5 hours, which meant we were able to hold him and love him, and his family was able to hold him and love him and see him, and then we said goodbye. And my life afterwards was and never will be the same. And the impacts of his life have been a mixture of incredible beauty, incredibly wonderful impacts that his life left. And then there's also been very deep and very hurtful impacts and scars that are in the process of healing, that have been healed, and some that just won't ever heal. And that's okay, because that's the effects and the legacy of Jackson in my life. And so the first step for me was recognizing that I had even been through trauma. You know, he was born in like 2009, and people weren't talking about trauma. That wasn't really a word that was ever thrown around. I knew that I was going through grief, but I didn't realize that I had been through trauma. I wouldn't have like categorized myself as someone who had been through or experienced any sort of like PTSD or traumatic experience. I didn't think that of myself until I went to a conference about a year and a half ago with ladies who had also experienced the loss of a child. And we learned all this trauma stuff, all this trauma training. And I was like, oh, I've been through trauma and I didn't know it. And I didn't realize what was happening in my brain that I could apply trauma tips to. I didn't know. And I was an adult. When my trauma happened. And it still took me so long to find tips and tricks and help and even recognize what I was even trying to battle. So I can imagine what it feels like to be a child who's going through trauma, recovery, who's trying to deal with a traumatic experience in their life, who is trying to deal with multiple traumatic experiences in their life, and then the children who are actually like living in trauma. It happens daily, multiple times a day, and they're in it and they're living it. And we're trying to, some of us as teachers, love them and be there for them and teach them fractions while they're living in trauma or dealing with trauma. So once I realized that I had been through a traumatic experience and there were things that were going on in my brain that I didn't understand and I didn't know, my first instinct was, everybody has to know this. Everybody needs to know what I'm about to teach you in this training. Everybody needs to know it, the whole entire world. Men, women, teenagers, adults. My parents need to know this. Your parents should know this. Children that we're teaching, we should teach them about this. I was so passionate about it. I was like, I was telling everyone, and if you've been in my life at all in the past year and a half, I've probably told you about this. If you've talked to me for more than, a handful of times, you've probably heard me talk about what this training did for me, what this trauma presentation during this conference did for me. So that's my why. That's why I'm doing this. I've been looking forward to this particular research with you for 2 years now, hoping that this could be my topic. And when it was approved, there was huge celebration, and then the oh, now I have to do this. So please bear with me because I am not an expert. And I wish I was, but that would take a lifetime. I would have considered myself more trained and more ready to teach you about 100 different things than this. But I have worked hard to try to be ready to share with you some neuroscience and some counseling techniques that are very simple. I'm a teacher, so I love things to just be taught in a simplistic order. I don't want complex. I want stairway to simplicity. Just give it to me at a bite-sized pace. So I'm not going to try to make you neuroscientists. I can't make you counselors in 4 videos. But what I can do is try to help you have the same tools that I have found so incredibly helpful to understand my own mind, and then to also understand the minds of the people around me, including the children around me, and specifically the people and the children that have been through trauma. So I will be teaching you how to recognize the brain's response to trauma, how to know it, what's going on, what's happening, but similarly to being diagnosed with any illness. You have cancer, right? You don't just want to know what it is that's going on. You want tools to fight it. You want some guidance and how to help fix it. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to teach you what's going on in your brain and then give you some tools to help battle it and, fix it. Not fix it. We can't fix it. But to, in that moment, give you some tools to combat what's going on in your brain. I like that better. We're going to combat instead of fix. So that's my why. You kind of know a little bit more of where I'm coming from, why I'm doing this, why I'm inviting you to come and do this with me. And then what I'm asking for the next few minutes is for you to potentially pause this video or watch it to the end where I'm done in like the next minute, and record your why. You can record your why in a couple ways. You can record it in a video. This is like torture to see yourself. So if that's you, I totally get it. But try to push through if you can and record yourself in a video telling me why you're interested in learning a little bit more about trauma and the brain's response to trauma. If you really can't stand looking at yourself and you want to just record it on a voice memo or type it up, you can send it to my email or you can just text it to me on my phone. Just a couple minutes, just sharing your why. Why are you interested in this particular topic? And I won't share this with anyone else. It'll just be me that watches it. It's just going to be a check on the actual presentation at the end that you had actually turned it in, but no one else is going to see it but me. I'm interested in your why. It'll help me as I answer certain questions and focus on certain topics to know what is it that's driving you to learn a little more about this. Whether it's to help children in your classroom, whether you're doing it because you're friends with me and I asked you to, if you're a mom and you want to apply this to some of your children, if you're a foster mom or an adoptive mom and you want to be able to apply some skills to some of the things that your children are going through, whatever your why is, just let me know and you can send that to me. If you haven't had a chance to do your pre-test, go ahead and do that because I need that data to show kind of where you're at now, and then we'll take a post-test at the end to kind of see what you've learned. So if you haven't had a chance to take that 5-question Google survey pre-test, go ahead and do that and then record your why. The last thing we're gonna do today, and I'm going to send this to you as well, is watch a quick video that is an incredible inspiration to me. She is a teacher, so a lot of what I see the world through is the lens of a teacher. And I worked really hard to be a good teacher. I studied and I thought about the kids, you know, that 1 or 2 or 4 kids that just really need you and you're thinking about them all the time. And where should I seat them? And how should I speak to them? And how do I make sure they know I love them? Or that girl who just seems really lonely, how can I include her in the class? How can I make her feel less isolated? How can I pull the coolest materials and the neatest subject material to make my class fun and interesting? So it doesn't surprise me or you, now that you know me a little bit, that a teacher would inspire me, and that I would ask you to watch what she chose to do, which is to push in. She chose to dive in, and she chose to step in to a school knowing full well that the children there were full of trauma, that they had stories, that they had lived through life that was messy and hard, and that she was gonna be receiving a lot of that anger and that harshness. And she chose to do it. She said, I'm still gonna do it. I'm still gonna love these kids, knowing that they're gonna be hard, knowing that they're gonna have gone through trauma. And so what I love about this story, that's you're gonna recognize her and her story the second you pull it up. But what I love about it is that it's just so universal. Everybody loves this story because I think everybody themselves wants to be accepted and feel loved, even when we're having a hard time, even when our minds and our emotions and our behavior are pushing and saying, I don't want you, I don't love you, I don't need you, We are just desperate for someone to still accept us and still love us and push through. And that's what this teacher does, and I think that's why everybody just finds it so mesmerizing, is to actually see that play out. So just to recap, so you have my why. This video is my why I'm interested in trauma. I'm asking you to record your why and send it to me And again, I'm the only one that'll see it, so you can say anything you want. You can be as free or as limited as you feel comfortable. And then make sure you take the pretest if you haven't, and then watch the video of the inspirational teacher that helps me want to push through, even though there is some behavioral aspects that are hard when we're dealing with people who have been through trauma. Okay, here we go. We're doing this. Thank you again.